This video is for John, Mike, and Gary. You know who you are. You're the ones that took me to task for not finishing the top 10 most important tools every carpenter should have in their tool bag. So, great video for you today. A tool that I think we overlook the significance of it and just how magical it is. And that's the chalk line. The chalk line is an essential tool that all of you guys should have in your kit, especially in your tool bag. But I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about the history of it. Because where the chalk line kind of started was from the plumb bob. This is a brass plumb bob, German made, beautiful hardened tip, very, very old, wonderful tool. Amazing tool. Interesting fact that the plumb bob, or the plumb line, is mentioned over 20 times in the Bible. When we see a plumb bob, I think this particular tool resonates with a lot of carpenters, myself included. I don't know if it's just because of the nature of it, the way it's made of brass, the heft of it. One thing that I remember from the time I was a boy that fascinated me was the way that the string is connected to it, runs through the center, so it hangs true. I always like that. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's an absolute rule of measure. It's definitive. It's perfect. How simple, how incredible it is to be able to take a string line, stretch it between 2 points, and have an absolutely dead straight line. Or the ability to plumb a wall, or the ability to plumb masonry. You know, this is a tool that's used very, I guess it's ubiquitous with carpenters as well as masons. And it's, as I said, it's used in the Bible as a rule of absolute measure, or perfection, or judgment, or a standard that cannot be altered. I think it's fascinating. So that brings us to, you know, there's a lot of history, and then we could do a whole video just on the history of it. Basically brings us down to the chalk line that we have in our hands today, which, if you look at it, it's not unlike a plumb bob in the fact that they both have a string. They both have a point on the bottom, and this can actually be used, as I've mentioned in other videos, as a makeshift plumb bob. You can see right there. Of course, it's not as good as this, but could it be used? Absolutely. So in making these videos, you know, there's always the pressure of getting things done quickly and concise and keeping those videos under 10 minutes. But there's so much to talk about. The plumb bob obviously is not going to be something that you have in your tool bag. It's just too heavy. I have seen some guys carry these around, actually attaching them to the end of their string line, but I don't think that that's practical for most people. But why a plumb bob? Why is that necessary? What's that? How can that be applied to the common man working around his house and such? I'll show you a couple ways. You know, on a side note, before we get started, now you don't often see the plumb bob with new carpenters anymore. This is kind of a thing that is, maybe a relic of the past, some might say. Some people would disagree with that. I, for one, do. And they'll tell you that it's been replaced with the modern devices like we have here. This is essentially an electronic plumb bob. We'll do the same thing. It's going to run off of batteries. And what it'll do is, let's say you want to put a mark. Let me show why this is so, just one application where you might find this to be very useful. So let's say, for example, that you're going to put can lights in your ceilings, or you want to lay out a wall, and you want to be able to make sure that where this point is and the point on the floor is exactly the same. One thing that I've done, and some people do, is if you do have a lot of stuff to lay out in a room, is to lay it out on the floor. Because it's easier to work on the floor than to work over your head. And it seems like the older we get, and the weaker our hearts get, and the fatter we get, you know, it's tiring to work up over your head all the time. So you can work on the floor. And a simple way that you can transfer those lines is, of course, using your plumb bob. So let's say you lay out, you're going to put 4 lights in here, you lay them out on the floor, and you can simply put your plumb bob down, put it on that mark that you put on the floor, transfer it up, and that's going to give you the exact line. Transfer your mark, okay? So pretty simple. I think all of us understand that. Same concept for these new items, the electronic ones. Without having the string and all that, we're going to have the mark on the floor, we're going to line up the dot, the red dot is going to transfer to the ceiling, and voila, we have the same thing. So here we come to an impasse. Which one is the better one? So if I had to advise you on what's the best fit and which one's going to be for you, you know, of course, this one is going to be, I purchased this 10 years ago. And it was, at that time, it was very expensive. A guy'd have to work a day, maybe 2 days in wages after taxes, probably 2 days to pay for something like this. Are you using it every day? Are you using it to lay out can lights? Are you an electrician? Are you a carpenter? Yeah, I could see that. If it saves you hours over a course of a year, then you can justify buying something like this from the convenience of it. But for the rest of us, I don't think it's a wise investment. Perfect example here is I purchased this years ago. I did not use it, but maybe a handful of times, and it no longer works. And I can't get it to work, and it's essentially a throwaway piece of plastic. And it cost me a lot of money at the time, and it never has paid for itself. This, on the other hand, how old is this? German-made Dietzgen. Well, it's German-made, you know it's good. Heavy. Brass and copper? Not sure. Plumb bob with a hardened tip. How old is this? 100 years old? 150 years old? Does it work as well today as it was as it came out of the factory? Yes. Will it do everything that this one will do? Yes, it will. Will this one do it anymore? No, it won't do it anymore. This one will work 100 years, 200 years, 300 years from now. It will still do the exact same thing, just as effectively as it would when it was first created. So, something to think about. No maintenance, no batteries, no risk of really damaging it if you take care of it. This is something that all of you should have, and buy it once and you're done. It'll serve you and for future generations for a long, long time. So I thought this video was about chalk lines, and I'm going on about 10 minutes and they're still going on about the plumb bobs. Your chalk lines. Okay, I'm really reluctant to get into specific brands because there's always someone who knows of something that's better that I didn't know. I've been out of the trades for a long time, and I can just tell you, I'm just going to generalize it, but what to look for. Your chalk lines are going to come down to two basic designs. Your regular direct drive, right here. These are my favorites. Simple, the straight line chalk reels, made in the USA. I don't know if they still are with the plumb bob built in. I think they're wonderful. No plumb bob here. But it's slow, right? So just like as you turn, there's no gear reduction. It's just direct drive like that. Now, there's a lot of other and newer ones that have a 3-to-1 gear reduction. So if we pull this out, let me show you a little demonstration here. So line up our chalk lines. We're going to pull this out one full rotation, right? There's one turn. Here. One turn. Okay. Give you an idea. If time is money and production is important to you, here we go. So look how much string we pull in with one turn. Look how quickly it goes versus one turn. So there's basically what you're dealing with. You're dealing with your gear reduction or your non-gear reduction. So the question is going to come, so which one do you recommend? And I'm always, not always, but I'm trying to, when I do this stuff, it's trying to relate to the common guy like myself, not the professional. So if you're a professional, again, and you need speed, yes, of course, this might be a better choice, but it comes at a cost. It is significantly heavier and almost twice the size. This is a chunk. If you're wearing your tool belts all day long, that is something to consider. Is that speed worth it? Not only that, they're much more complex inside. And being that all the mechanism and everything runs inside of chalk, which is very dry and it's hard on mechanisms and gears, these don't last that long. I know because I've been through lots of them. And the strings break and you have to take them apart and yada, yada, yada. Thing I've never had to take apart and that never breaks is just the simple one. Just the tried and true, the straight line, all metal direct drive made, you just can't go wrong with it. It's very simple. You have the versatility of having the plumb bob, you've got the size and easy to fill, because filling in like this one here is much easier to fill what I have found than this rubber plug here. So, and there may be other ones. I know that Irwin makes some good ones, and I think there's even a Japanese brand that people tell me is always the best. I've never used one, but just something to consider. And they're inexpensive. So I think we've decided just go simple, the common man, basic direct drive, simple, inexpensive chalk line that's not going to let you down. So now that you've got your chalk line, you're going to go to the store and you're going to run out and you're going to say, I'm going to need some chalk, and you're going to find you have more decisions. You're going to see they have blue chalk, There's red chalk, there's black chalk, there's white chalk, there's even fluorescent chalk. So which one do you need? Which one's the best for your general purpose? For your general purpose, blue is going to be your best bet. Now, if you're working outside with wetter material, framing houses maybe in the wintertime, some guys say that they like red. And if you're going to work inside on surfaces that may be painted and such, white would be a better option. They're not going to run the risk of having it bleeding through your paint and such. And then, of course, there's fluorescent, high resolution, and that may be a good option outside where you have, I don't know, you're working in low light, maybe off-season in Alaska. I don't know. I've never used those. But for the general guy, for the average use, you want to just go with the blue. You can't go wrong. So when you're filling your chalk box, you don't want to fill it all the way full. And there's a few tricks that are important to know about this. So your chalk is going to be very powdery. You open the door and you're going to shake it, and you're just going to keep filling it up here until you can't get any more in, and you're going to tap it. Tap it with your hammer, move it around or so. Keep looking in there, and don't fill it all the way up. It's going to make a mess, and you're not going to have good clean lines. It's just going to have too much chalk that comes out. But you'll see. Just keep tapping it. Something like that is just about right. Close your door. It's got a latch on it, and you're good. Now, how do you use it differently when it's full versus when it's starting to run low? All right. Let's say you're ready to snap a line and you've just filled up your chalk box. It's full, topped off, everything is tip-top. Once you open up the handle here and you pull it out, when the chalk line's full, you're going to want the string coming out to the top. You'll see, if you see there, you'll see lots of excess chalk is coming out, and pull it out off of your work. You don't want that all over your work and making a mess. Once you hook the edge on it, then come down and you'll want to just snap a line. Just like that. And the longer the run, the tighter you're going to have to pull it. Now let's say toward the end of the day when your chalk box is starting to run low, you can see that when you're snapping lines, they're starting to get shallow or lighter. They're not as dark as they were when you began. That's when you pull out, then you tilt the chalk box down. What that does is gravity is forcing all of that chalk down onto the string as it comes out, and you can see there it will coat your string better. So empty box, pull down. Where are you there? Full box, pull it out when it's up. Another really important feature you want to look for on your box is the way that the tip of it is made. You're going to see that it's got a nice hook on it there, just like a tape measure would have. And of course, obviously, that's going to give you the ability to work one-handed. So you can put it on an edge and it will hold. Also, you'll see that it's got a V cut in the end. Both of these models will have that. It comes down to a point. And the reason for that is the V centers it if you want to put a nail. So let's say you made a mark here that was on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, or a place that it wasn't convenient to hook on the edge, or it just wasn't working for you. You can put a nail red on your mark and you can pull it tight, and that will find the center and pull directly on the nail. Be careful when you're using your chalk box that the string is also centered. You want to make sure that it doesn't come over here and get hung up on the side and be pulling off your mark. Make sure each time you use it that you tie it hard on there and that is free and that's coming off. So when you pull it, it's centering. Everything is nice. You've got a nice straight line. Also, one trick, if you're working by yourself, you need to get tension on the chalk box. So as you pull and you come in close, rotate your finger around like this, a loop, simple loop, pull it tight, and now you can snap your line. I'm going to share with you guys a trade secret. Everyone likes to learn trade secrets, right? So let's say, for example, this is a small mock-up size, but let's say you have a big sheet and you need to snap a line on an angle, on a 45. You're going to be pulling at an angle. And you find you hook your clip on here and you start pulling your angle like this, and this wants to walk, right? It's not holding. Especially you're going to find that on a piece of plywood and you don't have anyone there to hold it for you. The solution is simple. If you're using plywood, you can use a saw, or if you're using drywall, you can use your drywall knife, but simply cut a little notch in there. Just like that. Just a little one. And now you can put your string in that notch. And on the back side, the tip of your chalk line is going to hold. And now you can run at any angle you want across here, snap your line without having to call for help or have someone come and bail you out. So there really is not a lot of maintenance once you have these. It's not a bad idea to have a spare string. The strings will break, but they'll typically break at the knot down here. And if that happens, you just untie it, tie your clip back on, make sure you save it. Now if you're working outside and it's wet and you're snapping lines, the chalk the chalk line will be much less effective. At the end of the day, you're going to want to take, there's a Phillips screw in there, take that apart, separate that, take the string out if it gets really wet, and loop it over something inside where it will dry out. You'll even get where the blue chalk or whatever chalk you're using will cake up inside there, and it's just less effective. It has less volume. You may need to get in there and scrape it out, but there's not really that much to it. It's pretty straightforward. So that's it. Number 3, of your essential tools, your chalk line. You know, as I was doing this video, it dawned on me, it just dawned on me here just a second ago, how we take for granted these things that we have that make our job so easy. What an incredible invention this is. If you go back and you look at the early chalk lines, the Japanese and Chinese and early Europeans devised all sorts of methods for having a small string with a handle on it that would run chalk through a bucket, little bucket or a little container or a reservoir, and they were carved out of wood. It's really interesting. And it's come down to this, how efficient, what a wonderful tool this is to be able to snap a perfect line and have something that you can work by yourself and that with the chalk on it. I mean, it's how easy to take those things for granted when it really is an incredible invention. I was listening to, is it Sal Glesser? Maybe I have the name wrong. The guy who owns Spyderco, and he was talking about what an incredible invention fingernail clippers are, and how we take those things for advantage, or take those things for granted. And it is an absolutely beautiful design, elegant design, and it's easy to overlook it. Overlook all these things that we enjoy that have been the process of evolution for 500, 600 years, something like this, down to what we have in our hand today that make our lives so much easier, and it's a cool thing. It's really a cool thing. So I was going to cover carpenter's pencils and sharpening and keels and that sort of thing. I think we'll do that with the tape measure. There's a lot to talk about with tape measures too, how to make sure you get a good one that is going to make your job easy, because that's what it comes down to. Is the work is frustrating enough and we're all pressed for time. And if we can have things that don't cost us too much money and that can make our lives easier, simpler, help us to get the job done better and quicker, that's what we want to know. And to take the experience from generations of carpenters and apply those, that they're relevant to the homeowner, to the handyman, as they are to anyone. So that's why we're here, and sharing these things. And I'm not the foremost expert on it. I'm just sharing what I know. So please rain in the comments if you have a chalk box that you like. I like the straight lines only because I don't know what else is out there, and I've used them for forever. These are the same chalk lines that I always use. My dad always had, and so I don't know. Maybe I'm a little nostalgic about it, but I like them. So, as always, you can find my recommended tools at wranglermart.com. I'll put a link here. You can click on the little icon on the top right there, or is it over here? I never know. And you can see my recommended tool list. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.